My name is Vicky. I'm 24 years old, and I have something to mention in this story. It would sound crazy. Some may not even believe this. Some people say this is just completely made up and that's nothing like this would even happen. But honestly, it did. And I'm so glad I managed to get out of that situation and that particular mess. Um, I should point out that before this happened, I was in a relationship when I was just between 23 and 24. I was in a relationship with a guy, but I found out that he was cheating on me with a different girl. And when I called him out on that on the phone and told him that we are done, I'm not going to see or hear him ever again. So I blocked his number, and he even tried to even reach out to me. So I at least figured out that he was not even interested in me whatsoever. But I knew that my status as a single wouldn't last long though. But after about a year, I was ready to be going out in a dating scene again. And I heard that people be using either dating sites or using some mutual friends. They're one of the friends who had someone they know was looking for someone. But none of my friends didn't even approach me in that way, so I thought, try a dating site. But one thing I would never try, Tinder. I know that a lot of people using Tinder only for a hookup or a one-night stand. I was not even into that. So I put in my bio, I was only looking for a long-term serious relationship, nothing else. Sure, it did happen from time to time. Some guys were just trying to get me to meet up for a hookup, but I refused. But I did actually had some conversation with some guys pretending they were interested, but they were just the same as the old ones were. But it did happen. I actually went out on occasion dates with some guys, but sadly, most of them guys I never clicked with. So which was a bummer. But after almost a few weeks after I've been trying this, or after about a month or so, I decided to give it one more try. And prospectively, I should have stopped by then, because if I did, none of this would not have happened. But anyways, I found this guy named Derek. Derek was 25 years old, only 1 year older than me, and he was like myself, blonde, blue-eyed. He was very fit, since in his bio, in his hobbies, that he was working out, and for a living, he was working as a mechanic with his father. They actually ran as a very successful car shop or car mechanic shop here in town. So we started talking. We first by on the website, and then we moved to text messages, and then we went to phone calls and even to FaceTime. Because I wanted to know for sure that it was actually him on the photos and not one who's the one catfishing me. Believe me, I would have said, if it turned out that he wasn't him, I would have blocked the number and stopped using the website entirely. But it was actually him. I was happy for once. We started talking, and after about almost 2 weeks, he asked me out for dinner, which I said yes. He took me to this nice Italian restaurant in town, and honestly, I was actually having a good time. I mean, I didn't fall in front of her right away though, because this was just the first date. And sometimes the first date only will be just that, first date. But I actually liked him, and we had a lot of things in common, and we actually had a good time. And after the first date, he asked me if I wanted maybe to spend some more time another time. I said, I will think about it. And I did, and I texted him only a few days later that I'd like to meet him again. I mean, I did have a good time, and he didn't act like a creep or anything like it. And ever since then, he always texts me in the morning in the evening, like good morning, good night, or even ask me how my day had been and something like that. It was kind of sweet. I mean, he was very polite, and after being dating for about almost 2 months, we made it official. I mean, he was probably my dream guy if one particular event that will happen later on. Just try to hang out on this one. So he he actually met my family, my parents and my older brother Leo. Leo and Derek actually connected because both of them actually like to work out. Since when Leo found out that Derek goes to the gym, and surprising enough, they actually had ran into each other at this particular gym since Leo worked as a gym instructor or sometimes even personal trainer at the same gym. So they basically know each other by names at least. And after but dating for at the time almost 4 months, he had asked if I would like to meet his family. I was like, well, yes, why not? I mean, I heard only in instance he had met my family from a few times. And I hadn't even met his family yet. And since they were local, I know that he lived by himself, but he go to see his parents from time to time, and he has a 23-year-old sister who was studying at the college out of town in a different state. So I was like, okay. So we made plans to meet his family on for dinner the next weekend. So during the week, I was quite nervous but also excited to meet his family. I mean, he's been treating me like a princess, like almost like a queen. He'd never been yelling at me and never been sign of any sign of jealousy. He has always been polite. So I was like, if he's like this, his parents had made a very much a good job in that. I wanted him to want to meet his parents. Even though when I mentioned this to my family that I felt a little bit, how to say, nervous. But my mom told me that Derek probably felt nervous at the same time himself when he met my family for the first time. So at least we probably would have been in the same boat. But I told my mom that I was gonna text her when I was there, just to put her as safety. And I had my phone fully charged when we left. Luckily for that. But when we arrived, they lived in this two-floor stored house in like a normal house. And we walked in, and as soon as we walked in, I saw their home was very beautiful. I mean, I did see some items that was involving cars. I mean, after all, his dad owned a car shop, but it was like more as old cars. The items like photos of a car race, and he explained that was actually his when he and his son went to a NASCAR race. And I looked closer, sure enough, it was a NASCAR race on a photo. But Derek, he actually changed for some reason. On the way there, he was very talkative, but when he went in the house, he went almost entirely silent. It's like he only spoke when his parents asked him something, or if it's saying to like give him permission. I was a little surprised, but at least he wasn't alone there. His younger sister was home for the weekend only though, and I was like, we went into the living room where we talked, and we were to have a dinner, but Derek's mom said that the dinner was not ready yet, but they will eventually soon. So they started asking me some things about myself, like just the more common things, but like what I was doing for a living and what are my plans for the future. since I had finished college myself. So my plans was to get a career as presumably maybe within nurse care or something like that. I wasn't really sure at the moment, but um, and I was hoping to perhaps doing that first for maybe a few years before to have any plans for settling down. That's some reason actually triggered his parents to almost frown. Like, a young woman like you start should probably start on settle down first, then a career. I mean, it turned out that Derek's mother wasn't working at all. She was a home wife, like the old school type. I mean, I asked her if, when she was in school, if she had any plans for the future or dreams or anything. She said, no, I just want to be a home wife to my future husband. Turned out, Derek's parents was actually high school sweethearts, and they were expecting us to get married soon. I was like, what? We had only been dating for only a few months and expecting us to get married so soon? And then suddenly, his mom left and came back with a paper and a pen. And his and I put it on the table and it's like, here, you have to sign this. I was like, signing what in my mind? And I asked if I could read it. They didn't actually hesitate to say yes on that. So I took it and it was some form of agreement. Like a contract. That I would sign this and that I will belong to him. And that all my assets will belong to him and that I would give up all my dreams to being that and I should stay at home and be raising our family and that we lived in the same neighborhood. I was like, this is a lot to handle to be the process, I thought. And then Derek's dad told me that Derek's sister, had done the same thing. She was actually engaged with a guy that they approved, and that he had also had to sign the same papers. And I was like, I may need some time to think about this. I mean, this suddenly is just so suddenly. They understood. So after that, we had dinner, and I was still doing it some after dinner, and during dinner, they made a hint that I should sign a paper, that we make a perfect couple. And when we were in bed, I told Derek that this agreement made me feel a little bit unusual, unexpectedly. But he actually didn't mind at all. He said that is quite normal. Because he told me that his parents did the same thing, apparently. And his grandparents, and his great-grandparents. And to them, it was normal. But I told him, I mean, if we did get married, I would still have a job. Then he somehow snapped and told me, no, you were not allowed to have any sort of job whatsoever. And the next day, I was still very scared. Originally, we weren't planning to stay up and spend the night, but we did. And by the morning, it was quiet around in the kitchen table. And yeah, we didn't talk much. And basically, and when I was with my family, we probably didn't do the same much ourselves. And all I can say is, around lunchtime, or at least after breakfast, my boyfriend Derek's mom actually showed up with a paper again and told me that now I need to make my decision. Just told them that I need to sign it. And I asked if I could just use the restroom. And I did. I texted my mom and I told him her brief part of what was happening. And I called her, told her, explained it, but also briefly, and she was horrified. And then she told me that she's sending Leo to this place, since I didn't drive myself there. And when I went out, I went back to the kitchen, and his parents was now standing across the table along with his sister and himself, and his father like now said almost like angrily, "Now you need to sign the paper." I'm like, "No, I'm not signing that." "What?" "I don't belong to your son as a property. If I would end up marrying him, I still would working at my own thoughts. You can't just assuming that I would belong to him as his property. That is it's not right. And your sister's boyfriend should probably think the same thing. This is not right. You can't force anyone to marriage." His dad lost it and he said, "You are not allowed to leave. You belong to my son." And I was horrified. I knew that my brother would eventually show up, but I didn't know when. I mean, I tried to stall this as much as I could, and as I told them, "I'm leaving." But they said, "You are not allowed. This is your home now." And I was like, "Derek, we are done. We are over." And he screamed at me, "You can't do that. You belong to me." That's showing his true colors. But then suddenly, there was a bang on the door. It somehow snapped his family out of this. And I was like, "Vicky, are you in there?" It was my brother. "You called your brother?" asked Derek almost angrily. "No, but my mom did. So if you don't let him in or let him go, he will barge in." And actually somehow, but before I managed to do that, I grabbed the contract and left. I was horrified. And on the way when in Leo's car, he asked me what happened over there. What and I showed him the paper when we were stopped in a traffic light, and he looked through it very briefly. It's like he couldn't even believe it. He first believed it was a joke. But look at my face. Nope, not at all. It was not a joke. He believed me, a single word of it. So we were discussing with my parents when he get home what to do next. At the same time, Derek called my phone, demanding that I get back there. And I signed the paper because I belonged to him. And I could actually hear his parent and his dad screaming in the background, "Yes, you belong to him. You is his future wife." And then my dad, who actually works as a police officer, on the phone, almost first calmly, "Derek, and your dad, stop contact my daughter. If you don't, this will count as harassment." But they didn't listen. "You don't get involved in this," screamed Derek's dad. "Sir, I'm sure to mention this. I'm an actual police officer. This is harassment. And my daughter is going to sign a police report and restraining order against your family." And it didn't take long for that to happen though. But it turned out, with this new evidence, well, this document, or this supposed agreement, contract, or what do you call it, after that, I started talking to my friends about this guy. And they talked to other people, and soon enough, this spread through entire town. Derek, he was banned from this entire gym, according to the list for my help from my brother. And people refused to do any sort of business with Derek's parents, or his dad. And without no business, he lost his work hard shop and of that. And the last I heard about him, he literally moved out of town with his family. And from what I heard from Leo, or at least one of his friends, that the guy that was dating or engaged with Derek's sister actually snapped out of it the same thing and did the same thing and broke up with her. She lost it. But he didn't care. Because after he heard about me, he realized that was not normal. And I had even heard or seen anything from Derek ever since. But shortly after this, I actually met another guy. And his name is Richard. He was actually a friend of one of my friends. He was a complete opposite side of Derek. Well, he was like Derek in the beginning, very friendly, very gentle. And in fact, me and Richard, we are engaged. We are planning to get married in the summer next year. And so, yeah, in all of these events, I can understand why people don't believe me. But Derek, you do me a favor. Stay the way away from me and my family. Thank you, because you are a creep like a family. Thank you.